once more into the quiet space where questions linger longer than answers and where the unexplained refuses to stay buried. I have I have the pleasure of welcoming our guest, Betsey, author, paranormal investigator, badass, and uh, podcast podcaster,
Yeah.
podcaster of the podcast. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
So once again, I also want to welcome my right hand man, that is a woman, Raven Knight. Welcome, Raven. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Right
Fantastic.
hand man, that's a woman. That's the first time I've heard
Yeah.
that. I
Well,
like
that's
it.
what I say. And
Uh,
you, of course, the audience. Thank you very much for being here. Raven, take it away.
well, Betsy, Gabriel just kind of said a couple of the things that you do, which
Yeah.
are
Very
all
astute.
very interesting.
Yeah.
We're going to touch on all of those things tonight, but what I really want to do is kind of talk a little bit about your background. Let's start with, because we are a paranormal podcast here at Darkwoods Paranormal, since it's in the title.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your paranormal background. Like, have you had experiences in the past, and how did that bring you into doing your own paranormal investigating?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've had quite a few different varieties of paranormal experiences through the course of my life. My mother was very interested in the paranormal and kind of got me interested in it when I was quite young. We lived in the Pacific Northwest for a while, grew up outside of Bellingham, Washington for a very short period of time. So that's where I first heard about this monster called Bigfoot. And so that was my monster when I was a kid growing up. So I've had a lifelong fascination with Bigfoot. But we also would go to these ghost hunts, a lot of historic sites. I'm very interested in history. So we would go to these historic sites that were, purportedly haunted, really just kind of curious at first. And the more we would go and do these things, the more experiences started to come forward. One of the places in Oklahoma that we like to visit is the historic Fort Reno, which is an old Indian fort built in the 1800s, out in the middle of the prairie. There's nothing around it. It's still an active USDA research site, but some of the original buildings are still standing. And one of them is the old Victorian, which was the officer's home. And we had gone out one night, kind of the de facto safety team. I'm a safety professional by trade. And we had done it so many times that we heard all the stories and had all the jump scares and things like that. But we would just kind of go and follow everybody around, make sure the tourists didn't wander off into the dark or trip and fall in a hole where they couldn't see. And so I would always get there early before it got dark, because I do not see well in the dark, which is a horrible thing for a paranormal investigator. I'm night blind. So I'd go out in the daylight and I would survey the area. Even though I've been there 100 times, things change. And I'd walk around and I would take baseline photos and baseline measurements and just kind of approach it from that scientific standpoint, because that's what I did as a safety professional. And so I had taken pictures in all the windows, and I had taken measurements and readings and found all the potholes. And we were walking back around with the guests in the evening after it had gotten dark. And one of the pictures that I took in the window on my digital camera was a very clear image of a face in the window, inside. And you can almost see a hand up by his face, and you could make out the outline of the beard and the eye sockets. And it was like somebody inside going, "What are you kids doing on my yard?"
Get off my grass.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I got it.
So that was probably one of the only real pieces of evidence that I got from a ghost investigation. But we had multiple things happen to us while we were out visiting that fort on the many times that we would go out there. One evening we were out there for another event, and we were walking around the old Victorian and got to the north side of the building, and the third story window fell out and landed just inches in front of my mom.
Wow.
And shattered. Scared the living daylights out of both of us. And we had decided they didn't really like us hanging around out there. So, yeah, that was definitely interesting. But at one point, we could actually go inside and do investigations. They don't let you go in anymore because the building's starting to show its age. But we were in the attic one day, and we were doing some investigations with the cat balls, because there were children that were supposedly, present in the hauntings. And we would put a ball out and we'd roll it across the floor and wait for it to get pushed back at us. And that happened on several occasions. But I also had somebody touch my leg, literally ran their hand up my pant leg and back down my leg. It's like that was probably one of the creepiest things I've ever had happen. So that really kind of drew me in to paranormal investigations, and I've done multiple investigations since then. I'm also kind of weather sensitive, which is a good thing to be in Oklahoma. The largest F5 tornado ever recorded in the state of Oklahoma happened May 3rd of 1999 in Moore, Oklahoma. And there were multiple fatalities. It was a horrible, horrible event. It was a wide tornado, it was a fast tornado, and it was on the ground for hours. And the night before it happened, I had a very vivid dream about every single thing that was going to happen the next day. And I have friends that are storm chasers who told me, hey, we're going to go out. And I'm like, you need to be aware because this is what's going to happen. And I mean, I nailed it spot on. And we had season tickets for our local hockey team on the front row. It was a championship playoff game. And so we were on our way to the hockey game, and I'm telling my mom the whole story about this dream. She goes, now, you know, we're going to have bad weather tonight. And I'm like, yeah, Rob's already out chasing it. He's already down on it, down by Lawton. It's just going to come right up I-44. It's going to take a hook in more. People are going to die. It's going to be a bad night. And so she said, well, what about the hockey game? Should we turn around and go home? And I said, no, I have a feeling we'll be fine. But we may have to go down in the basement and just kind of hang out until the game's over, or until the storm passes before they come back up and play the game, which is exactly what happened. So I've had multiple events like that. I was doing a safety consultation for a company, and I asked them about their emergency action plan. And I said, you know, I really feel like you guys need to have something in place because there's supposed to be some bad weather in the next 48 hours. You need to at least have a plan and communicate to your employees where they need to go. And they're like, well, we're a big metal manufacturer. We've got metal everywhere. Where's the safest place for us to go? And I said, well, let's look at that while we walk through, and maybe I can give you some suggestions. You know, you don't have a storm shelter, but you have to have something that's better than nothing. And so we identified their shelter location where they should go, talked about what they should do. And as we walked through, every employee we encountered, he would call them over and say, hey, here's our plan if there's bad weather. Here's where we're going to go. I'm going to do a head count. Here's who you notify. Here's how I'm going to communicate it. And the next day, they had a tornado take at the front of their building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So I've had those kinds of things happen on more than one occasion.
So I'm going to say, because you have that the safety background,
Mhm.
but then okay, I want to backtrack a little bit on what you just said. Have you ever had any other experiences that didn't lead to, because you're talking about like natural disasters, have you ever had anything that was like predicting other things happening versus natural disasters?
Little things in the family, you know, what happened to the kids, or not anything I can really put a finger on as far as, you know, like a premonition that came true, other than, you know, I knew when my grandfather passed away, I was 13. And when I was pregnant with my son, I had developed preeclampsia and HELLP syndrome, and I was on death's door, and the doctor's like, we're delivering now. He said, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. And I was really terrified. I didn't think I was going to make it. And my grandfather was standing in the door of the hospital room, just kind of looked at me, nodded like, you're going to be okay, and kept right on walking by. And so I had events like that happen, and sure enough, I was fine, and my son looks kind of like his grandpa, but he's much taller. My grandpa was not happy that he was a short man. My brother went from 5'8" to 6'8" the summer after grandpa died. We think he got to heaven and just reached down and grabbed that boy by the hair and pulled him up. So my son was the same way. My son's pretty tall now, so yeah.
Well, that's fascinating. So my childhood dream was to be a part of NTSB. So I love the safety aspect of it. And we probably just bored a bunch of people, but that's okay. You know, we're fine with that. So you are a Bigfoot believer, huh?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
I you know, when you live in the Pacific Northwest, you hear about those kinds of stories. And we traveled. My grandfather was in the it was an oil field. He was a landman in the oil field industry, which is a popular show right now. I have to watch it just for him.
Right.
But we traveled all over the place, and we spent time up in the Pacific Northwest. We were down in Texas. We've been in Eastern Texas, Western Texas, Oklahoma, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri. I mean, we traveled all over the place. So most people don't really think of Oklahoma as Sasquatch territory, but there's actually many, many stories of Bigfoot, even in the Oklahoma City metro area. There is a natural reserve that was a mile from our house in Oklahoma City, where they had multiple sightings along a river that ran through there. But there's an area down in southern Oklahoma called Honubby, and everybody says it wrong. It looks like Honobia on the map, but it's Honubby. And that's how you know if somebody knows what they're talking about. Well, how do you say the name of that town? It's Honubby.
It's Honubby.
And I said it wrong many
Everybody
times.
knows that.
It is.
Yeah.
It's Honubby.
Right.
And I had it what I call one of my 3 near misses with Bigfoot in Honubby. We had gone down. I had a friend who's an author who writes books similar to what I write, and we'd gone down for his book signing to kind of support him and just to get out of the house. It wasn't very long after the pandemic, and we were just kind of restless and wanted to go. And we drove down there and spent the day. And he said, well, if you get a chance, you can just take the highway down, drive through Honubby. There's a place where you can take a picture with the sign that says, home of Bigfoot. It's the Indian Nation Highway. And so my husband's like, yeah, sure, let's go do it. So we get down there, and it's a 2-lane highway in the woods, in the mountains. There's no traffic. There's nobody out there. It was a beautiful day. So he pulls the car over and parks it, and we're kind of looking around, and there's like a manufacturing building and a couple other things and that sign. And so I said, well, I'm going to get my picture under the sign. Will you take some pictures for me? And so I get over there, and he snaps off a couple of pictures, and there was this smell. Mm-hmm. And I have been in some smelly places in my life. I've been in rendering plants. I've been in foundries. I've been in paper mills. I have been on crime scenes where people were murdered. I know what stink is, and that was the nastiest stink I could think of. It was something along the line of rendering plant, kitty litter, dead animal. It was just horrid.
It sounds like a really great perfume. You might want to.
I know. I don't think that you want to wear Sasquatch perfume at all. Anyway,
we could. You know what? We could name it Sasquatch perfume. That would sell.
I have a friend who has a company. They do beard balm, and he's culture creatured. It's all about Bigfoot.
Yeah.
But it doesn't smell bad. It smells good. This smells bad. So, I kind of wrote it off, and I said, yeah, let's get out of here. I got my picture. Let's go. And I texted my friend while we were driving home. I'm in the passenger seat, so I messaged him, and I said, do you guys have a paper plant anywhere around there, a rendering plant? What do y'all do in Honubby? He's like, what did you smell, Betsy? And I messaged him, exactly as I described it to you, and he said, oh, that was the booger.
The booger?
That's Bigfoot.
The booger.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to know where the expression boogeyman came from, it's the booger.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was one of my near misses with Bigfoot. That was in Oklahoma. Another one, we had gone to Mount St. Helens because that's where my book series starts out. They're at Mount St. Helens looking for Bigfoot. And I just wanted to go and see how I had done. I had friends that lived up there. Hadn't been there since I was a kid. So we went back up there and we're hiking around, not very far from Mount St. Helens, on one of the trails that was highly rated, and it was beautiful. And my husband's, looking around, watching the birds and all that kind of stuff. And I'm looking at the ground. I'm looking for Bigfoot prints. And I didn't see it.
The booger. I love that.
Yeah, I'm looking for the booger. Right.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that, Betsy. We all have, goals.
You do your thing. Yeah. And I didn't find any, but the next day in the newspaper, there was an article about prints that had been found later that afternoon on the trail that we had hiked. So I missed it by that much.
Oh.
So that was my near miss number 2. Near miss number 3 happened in Blue Ridge, Georgia. My girlfriends that do the podcast with me had wanted to do a writer's retreat, and so we had met at the Atlanta airport and driven up through LJ, Georgia, which is where the Expedition Bigfoot Museum is. Hi, Amanda, the Bigfoot lady. And we stopped and made friends with Amanda, and they had recordings where you could put on headphones and listen to the recordings. And I'm like, I think I've heard that before. Sounds familiar, but not anything I could really guarantee that that's what it was. And so we had decided one morning we were going to go for a walk. 2 of us had gone out. It was kind of rainy and cold, so we didn't think it'd be a very long walk. They'd had storms come through the night before, and some trees had been blown over. So some of the guys were on the trail with their chainsaws cutting down trees that had fallen across the trail. And one of them had gotten his chainsaw hung up in the tree and had to go back and get another one so he could get his chainsaw out. And he helped us kind of over the fallen trees. He goes, how far are you going? Where are you going today? Being polite. And, he said, well, we're not sure, probably not very far with it being cold and kind of rainy and stuff. He goes, well, So if you get to the waterfall, that's probably a nice place to turn around. He said, I'll be here for a little while. I'm going to kind of keep an ear out for you. And we're like, why? So
Stranger danger, absolutely.
Yeah, stranger danger, exactly.
Yep.
So we're walking along the trail and come out to this beautiful valley. And it's wide open spaces, and you can see up the ridge on one side and through the valley on the other. And about that time, he got that chainsaw fired up. And when that chainsaw revved, this blood-curdling scream came from the opposite direction. It sounded like a woman screaming. It sounded exactly like the recordings we had heard at Expedition Bigfoot.
And you're like, murder, that's great. You know,
Yeah, it's like,
fantastic.
I don't think we need to go all the way to the waterfall.
Thanks for waiting
today.
for us, big guy. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we just kind of looked at each other and we're like, okay, that's the booger. So those are my 3 near misses with Bigfoot. I've smelled one, I've missed tracks by this much, and I've heard one scream.
That's fantastic. So I had the pleasure of hanging with a good friend of mine. A shout out to Dave, good man, good family.
Hi, Dave.
Yeah, Dreyfus, what's up? And so I was explaining to him. I was not a Bigfoot believer, right? I'm like, it's a mass hysteria, and we were watching videos of Bigfoot, and I started paying a little bit more attention. The knocking of the trees, and then I said, Dave, I heard that. I live out in the country by a bunch of Amish people, woods everywhere, And I said, very possible I could have seen a Bigfoot, And we started watching more videos. I explained things like hearing these sounds. It sounds like monkeys in trees, rah, rah, and all this. And he goes, just a second. So he changes the channel, and all of a sudden, I'm hearing that sound. I'm like, Dave, brother, that's the sound. And I said, but, I don't know. And then I saw these orbs. He goes, listen. So we start watching things about Bigfoot and orbs. And he's like, Gabe's. I'm like, Dave, no, man. Listen, I built a whole episode about the mass hysteria of no Bigfoot. He goes, brother. I said,
Episodes.
yeah. Maybe.
There's a lot of people that have seen it, heard it, smelled it.
Yeah. And it was a funky smell. But, I was feeding pigs at the time because I live on a hobby farm. So
too,
so I thought, well, that's how it's smelling, But and then I was in my garage one day, not too far from that, a couple months after that, and I heard something that sounded like a goat, like a mimic, and it was higher up because my garage windows are kind of head size, and I remember looking out the window and I saw something run, and then he goes, they mimic. I'm like, no, Bigfoot don't mimic. It's made up, and it's make believe, man. There's no such thing, and by gall, I could have had a Bigfoot sighting.
One.
And I think
much.
Yeah, I think what the mind does is when you encounter things, being a paranormal investigator, author, and all that fun stuff that you are, when you experience things like that, I think rational minds tend to kind of overlook stuff like that and kind of go for rational, right? Tree fell, owls in the tree.
Right.
And then I always find it fascinating because when Raven and I, and I'm sure you've had the same experiences where after investigation or after something you've experienced, you sit back and it doesn't hit you right away. And you're like, and I think that's always the best time is like, damn it, I was there. That happened, So I love those stories.
Yeah, and we tell people that, when you're doing paranormal investigations, you always want to look for the normal first. I always start to go through my process of elimination. What could that have been besides, Bigfoot or a ghost? Or
rational minds.
Yeah. And, from the scientific method, you go through and you look at all the variables and all the conditions and try to rule out what it couldn't be before you try to pinpoint what it could be. And always looking for the normal before we look for the paranormal.
And I think that's what it is. I think we've encountered a lot of people that investigate the paranormal that like the Bagans of it all is what we like to say, where everything's sensationalized, But I think the rational people that actually do go out to try to figure out what it is, they really try to rule everything. They try to rule that out, Yeah. And I think that's the best evidence because if you take away all the rationality out of it, what you're left with is the supernatural.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that you brought that story up, Gabriel. I didn't think you were going to admit that to anybody, that you actually might believe, because 5 episodes, it was probably 10 episodes, if not 20 episodes of Gabriel saying, no, Bigfoot is baloney.
That's right.
And every guest that's come on here in the last, I don't know how many episodes, he's been like, no, this is not a real thing. What am I going to do now for the reals? Gabriel, thanks a lot. You've ruined this for me.
I don't like it either, Raven. Listen, but I promised Dave that I maybe I said I should. He made a point to make sure that I told you that story, Raven,
Excellent.
because he has a high respect for you and he wants to embarrass me, and I love that. So
Dave says he's very proud of you, by the way. He's in the comments saying he's very proud of you. It's like you finally accepted that something could be real, such as Bigfoot. I, Betsy, on the other hand, have been a firm Bigfoot believer forever. I haven't had any experiences with Bigfoot, but I just believe that if there's something, we don't know what's in the woods. We don't know what's in the ocean. We don't know what's in space. Like, that's the thing. There's always the possibility, and we have no idea.
Yeah. One of the lines that my character uses, Dr. Lauren Grayson's my lead character in my Veritas Codex Paranormal Thriller series, and she is a biological anthropologist, and her line is, "Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence."
oh, that's
And she says that
fantastic.
multiple times. Yeah.
That's
So
fantastic.
She's out there trying to collect real hard evidence and
Right.
trying to be taken seriously in the paranormal community, but still not lose her credentials in the scientific community. So she walks the thin line between those two worlds. And sometimes she falls awry of both sides.
What was the pivotal moment that you started believing in the paranormal? And that's an assumption that, you do.
Yeah.
So what was that moment for you? What happened? Do you
Well,
mind sharing that story?
I think it's just the way I was raised, to be very open and to understand that there's things in this world that we don't understand. I can't pinpoint a single time because I remember learning about Bigfoot when I was like 2 or 3 years old. And it just wasn't a question for me if it was real. It just was. We just hadn't seen it or proven it yet. So, I mean, my fascination with paranormal goes back probably about the same time I was learning to read. I don't remember learning to read because my mother taught me while she was teaching my brother. And he was 6 and I was 3. And I went to kindergarten and pre-K already knowing how to read.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's amazing. And then so somebody who learns how to read so early in life becomes a writer. That seems to make a lot of sense in my mind.
Yeah.
Can we talk? I know you mentioned your series a little bit, and I was so afraid I was going to mess up the name of it. It's the
Veritas, which is Latin for
You did
truth.
screw it up. Congratulations. There.
Okay,
Great.
I got you.
Yeah, she got you.
Veritas Codex, and Veritas is Latin for truth, and Codex is Latin for book, so it's basically the truth book.
Well, that's
Oh.
awesome. Well, tell us about the series.
So
Tell us about.
yeah, the series follows Dr. Lauren Grayson, and she has a television investigation crew, and they go out on the hunt for the answers to the world's greatest mysteries. And for our paranormal friends who like to watch Discovery Channel, Travel Channel, Sci-Fi Channel, it's everything from that all kind of rolled into a ball. Lauren, the whole premise for the book started probably 2004, 2005. I was watching, I want to say it was Destination Truth with Josh Gates.
Josh Gates.
Like
They
4
love
o'clock in the
Gates.
morning one night, the baby couldn't sleep and I couldn't sleep. And so we're watching the show and we're a couple of seasons into it. And I'm thinking, I love this show, but they never find anything. And then it hit me, well, what if they did, but it was a truth they could never tell?
Right.
And so that was kind of the idea that stuck in my craw that kept coming back to me. And so I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to write this, I want a female investigator. I want a strong female lead because there are no women portrayed in paranormal investigation. Of course, back at that time, there wasn't.
Right.
So Lauren was the first character I developed, and I wanted her to be strong. I wanted her to be stubborn. I wanted her to be able to go out into the woods, catch a fish with her bare hands, bite its head off, and not take any bull from the boys. And to be able
Modern
to
day
carry her
Nancy
own.
Drew. I love that. I used to read Nancy Drew and
yeah.
Hardy Boys.
Exactly.
I grew up on that. Loved it.
Exactly. Well, then she needed a partner. She needed somebody who could keep up with a strong woman like that. So Rowan Pierce is her partner in crime and life, and he is a former military medic. He's kind of the de facto safety team for the investigation. They have a French-Canadian hockey player who is the director of photography. They have a woman from South Africa who's the research assistant, and the 4 of them make up the core of the Veritas Codex team. And so in the first book, I thought, well, if I'm going to start anywhere, I'm going to start with Bigfoot. So they go to the Pacific Northwest and they're looking for Bigfoot. And in the middle of the investigation, Lauren disappears. And she's gone for 10 days and has no memory of what happened to her when she comes back. But they have documented evidence that shows her being abducted by Bigfoot.
Huh.
So the real mystery becomes what happened to Lauren. And in the course of finding out the truth to that, they find out more about Bigfoot.
Wow.
That's
So
fascinating.
every book in the series is a new episode of the program, and the process of them filming it, developing it, and creating the program, and all the things that happen while they're out, doing their research. The second one, it was 2012, and I thought, okay, I enjoyed writing the first one, and I wrote it for practice. I didn't think anybody was ever going to read it, so I could be as outlandish as I wanted to be. But I felt like there was more to the story. So I thought, okay, I'm going to write about this Mayan apocalypse business, because what do I do when my calendar runs out at the end of the year? I go get a new calendar. It's not
Absolutely.
that hard.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I thought, okay, Lauren's going to have fun with that. And they get into an illegal antiquities deal gone bad. There's a murder. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong.
I love that.
And then the third book is The Alien Accord. And Lauren has a brother who's always been the fly in her ointment. She does not have a good relationship with this brother. And he's a satellite telescope engineer for NASA. And he's always teased that he would find aliens before she did. And when one of his mentors is murdered, he discovers that there's this signal coming from outer space, and he's got to find it before the enemy catches him, but he can't do it without Lauren. And so they have to find a way to bury the hatchet, so to speak, and not in each other's heads, and to work together to find the answer to these mysterious signals from outer space. Book 4 is The Monk's Grimoire, and that book I wrote in 23 days.
Oh,
I
wow.
was so inspired by an
Wow.
idea about missing pages of the Devil's Codex, which is a real book.
It is the real book. Yes,
It is a real book. It's huge. It's written
Yep.
on vellum. It
Yep.
has like every text known to man at that time perfectly inscribed in the same font through the whole course of this 300-page book. And at the back of it, there's this horrific drawing of what looks like a devil.
Mhm.
And the myth behind the book is that it was written by a monk in a single night because he was going to be walled up for breaking his monastic vows.
Mhm.
And when he realized he couldn't finish it in one night, he sold his soul to the devil in order to get the book finished. And so he drew that page to honor the agreement. And he finished the book in one night, as the story goes. So in my story, there are pages that are missing from this book. And if Lauren doesn't find the pages before the devil does, there's going to be hell to pay.
That's
And
fantastic.
that single idea got me to write that whole book in 23 days. I actually wrote 28,000 words in 3 days,
Oh, wow.
which is
Wow.
half the book. I wrote it in 3
It's
days.
amazing.
Took me the rest of the month to finish the book because I had a 3-day weekend with nothing going on. The kids were off
Right.
doing their thing. The weather was bad. I just sat and wrote, and then it took me the rest of the month to get the book finished. We moved to the Lost Templar, which I'm a descendant of some Templars, so I'm a genealogist. I've tracked my family tree back to the year 200. So I put a little family history in there,
Right.
and of course I blur the lines a little bit. I'm really big about doing my research so that I know where the line is,
Right.
and I can blur that line just enough to make you go, I wonder if that's real. I'm going to go look that up.
That's a
And I'll
wonderful
have you
skill.
go down the rabbit trail with me on the research. So
Right.
that one was a fun book to write. Book 6 is The Pirate's Curse, and that one is by far the most fun book to write because I threw in everything that I love. Pirates, mermaids, Bermuda Triangle, time travel, Atlantis, Poseidon, chaos, all the things are in this book. And then book 7, I've got so many of them now I have to stop and think. Book 7 is The King's Ransom. And this one is, they are in the Middle East looking for Saddam Hussein's missing Stargate.
Wow.
People
Wow.
don't know that Saddam Hussein allegedly had a Stargate,
Okay.
but the enemy now wants to try to find that. And then book 8 comes out on Tuesday. You can pre-order it now. It is the Sultan's Stone, and it is set at the haunted Stanley Hotel in Colorado,
Oh,
The Stanley
which is kind of
Hotel.
where Lauren and Rowan met. So I'm bringing things full circle for that. And I've already written books 9, 10, and 11, and I have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen in book 12.
Oh
that's
my gosh.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
And then we'll see
amazing.
where to go from there. And that's just one of my series. I have another series that's two sisters in a secret society trying to find cursed relics. It's, you know, the librarians meet Warehouse 13, meet the Da Vinci Code.
That's awesome, Betsy. It really is. We always enjoy the minds of authors. Every time we
It's
we
a dark
interview,
place.
no, it's fabulous, right? Because I think to come up with a story, you really review it. At least when I write, in your mind, it's like a movie that plays, and then it's a rarity that you're able to grab that and actually put the segments of the movie you just saw in your brain into paper, and that's amazing. And so, what is your process? What inspires you to have these stories? What part or what happens throughout your day that makes you that inspires you? It's just one day you're like, bam, this is what it's going to be, and you just do it?
Sometimes it happens like that.
I love that.
I'm a perpetual student. If I had money and I could go to college every day, I would have multiple degrees in all different kinds of topics. I would have archaeology, anthropology, geology, geophysics, physical geography, and it took me 30 years to get my 2-year degree. So I've kind of already started that prospect.
Love that.
I couldn't decide what I wanted to be when I grew up. The safety gig was working out pretty well.
Sure.
I had been called in to work some disasters in my career. I worked the Murrah bombing in Oklahoma City. I just happened to be about 6 blocks away when that happened. I was a building inspector at the time. And then because of that experience, when the World Trade Center happened, I was working as an OSHA consultant, and OSHA needed additional help because their office had been in one of the towers. And so a lot of their materials and equipment and personnel had been highly impacted by that. And that disaster ran for so long that there was no way they could maintain mission readiness without the support of the partners from the other states. So I responded to that. I spent a couple of weeks in New York City working in the pit. The disaster happened in September. I was there in March. So they were all the way down to the bottom of the pit and still doing body recovery in areas of what was the parking garage underneath the building.
Right.
And then I went on to Hurricane Katrina, and I spent 12 days down in Katrina working that disaster. And then all the tornadoes in Oklahoma, I responded to a lot of those. So, I take inspiration from real life, and those experiences may not directly end up on the page, but they're going to lead me down the trail to something different. And so I went on to get my degree in emergency management because they offered, in Oklahoma, the Office of Emergency Management had worked with FEMA to offer a 50-50 performance grant. And that meant that my classes were basically buy one, get one free. And I only needed the emergency management classes to get my degree. And so I jumped on that and finished my degree and graduated from college the week before my son graduated from high school, which was a goal. So my inspiration comes from everything, things I see on TV, things I see in the world, conversations I have with other paranormal investigators. I've just moved to Arkansas about a year ago, and I was blown away by the diversity of the paranormal community here, the openness, the engaging people. I feel like I don't have a lot of friends here yet, but the friends I do have are in the paranormal community, and I absolutely love that.
So we can definitely speak on that. So the paranormal community really is welcoming.
Yeah.
They really don't judge you, other than the character of your being, right? But some of the best people that we've met, Chumming with the Spirits, my good friend Dave, Dustin Perry, many others, Trish, all kinds of people that really blew me away how opening they really are.
Yeah. And that was true in Oklahoma. I had a really good network in Oklahoma. I have friends. One of the first podcasts that ever reached out to me, because my first book came out in the middle of the pandemic.
Oh, sure.
And the first podcast that reached out to me was the Para Unity podcast out of Iowa. And so he'd found my book because one of the descriptions somebody had reviewed it said, had the flavor of Dan Brown, and he was a big Dan Brown fan. And so he saw my book, and even before he'd read it, he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'd love to have you on my podcast." And I'm like, "Okay, how do I do a podcast?" So he basically walked me through it. And now we've become great friends. And I have friends all over the country now who are paranormal investigators, but to have people local that I feel safe going out and meeting and, calling up and saying, "Hey, where are you going to be Tuesday night? Are you out having a drink? I'll meet you somewhere." That kind of thing is rare in any other community, but not
Absolutely it is. Yeah.
Not at all.
So, Raven goes to haunted locations with people she doesn't even know. And she always tells me story how welcoming and how safe she feels, because we do really watch over each other when we do these kinds of things.
That's really true.
Yeah, and that's how it should be.
It should. So tell us about some of your paranormal experiences being a Darkwoods Paranormal.
Oh my gosh. As a building inspector, I got to go into buildings that the general public did not have access to. And it's usually buildings that were about to be demolished.
Okay.
I would go in and do asbestos surveys on them. And after, either before the asbestos was removed, during the removal, or after the project was completed and they're getting ready to sign off on the final demolition permit. And in Oklahoma City, they passed a bill to a tax incentive to get a lot of the old downtown buildings either demolished or renovated into something useful, created an area called Bricktown, which became the new tourist location in Oklahoma City. Really kind of was the reemergence of downtown, which was built during the oil boom, 1910, 1920s era buildings. One of them was the Skirvin Hotel, which is a very famous haunted hotel out of Oklahoma. The NBA players from other cities will not stay there. Some of them have been sent running out in the middle of the night, terrified. And I had the opportunity to inspect that building during the renovations back in the 90s. And one of those places that you just have a feeling when you get close to it. It's like, yeah, I need to keep my eyes and ears out on this one. And I started to hear stories from the contractors about odd things happening, the water being turned on. And if you know anything about an asbestos project, they set up what's called a containment. And they seal off all the air, they seal off all the water so nothing gets in or out. And they plastic everything over, very thick, heavy, mills of plastic. They'll just completely seal everything off, multiple layers. You have to suit up, you have to shower out, have to decontaminate. And they would have the water just turn on. That's behind multiple layers of plastic. There's no way a human hand could have reached and had that water turn on. So they would have to breach containment. We'd have to go out and re-inspect it after they did what they had to do. And I have literally stood there after they got the containment put back into place and heard the water come on while I'm standing right there. So I've had that experience. Heard some stories about power tools coming on that weren't weren't energized, things like that. So my building inspector senses, I'm there for the safety of the worker, but I'm also getting a really good story on some paranormal activity that I'm going to come back and investigate. And I've been back to the the Skirvin Hotel multiple times and had opportunities to investigate. I've done the historical research. Some of the stories you'll hear I have not been able to substantiate, and some of them I have. So definitely very interesting place to go. So if anybody's ever going to go to Oklahoma City, if you can afford the dough, because it's not a cheap place to stay. It's a beautiful hotel. They've renovated it, restored it again recently. But there's definitely something there. One of the things we did at Katrina was the first assignment I got. I was partnered with an industrial hygienist out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And she and I were the only two people in the charity hospital. And our job was to go in and conduct an assessment to determine what hazards were present or likely to be present for the workers that were going to go in and have to do the cleanup. Now, when the hurricane hit, it was August of 2005, very hot time of the year, very humid, no power, no lights, no air conditioning. They were in that building for 10 days, trying to keep people alive, manually ventilating them. Some people didn't make it. It's right down the street from the Superdome, so if anybody got stabbed at the Superdome, they were brought to charity.
Right.
And when they left, they just walked out and left everything the way it was. They could not wait to get out of there, and I don't blame them because it was horrid. It's the oldest public hospital in North America. It was built in the 1700s, and they've just built on and on and on and up and up and up. So 27 stories, full city block. We walked every inch of that building over the course of 3 days, in the heat, in the dark, no power, no lights, no elevator, in full protective equipment, 107-degree heat, like 90% relative humidity. It was miserable. And our work rotation was 15 minutes of activity to 45 minutes of rest. And we would go up as many floors as we could get before we had to sit and rest. We start at the top and work our way down. And they had just walked out and left everything. There were cans of food that you could tell that they had to get a knife and bust into. You know, the ravioli still sitting there. Vending machines had been broken into. The pathology lab still had all the samples sitting out on the counters. There was no flushing toilets, so everything was bagged up. All the biohazards were bagged up.
So we're talking about another perfume.
Yes,
facility.
but we
Okay.
had on full face respirators.
Yeah.
With multiple layers of
Right.
filtration, different kinds, and we would take lavender menthol oil and put it on the that's all. To this day, when I think of New Orleans, I think of lavender menthol.
Oh,
Right.
God.
And it's this horrible miasma. So
Yeah.
it's not a pleasant thought for me. It's like
Sounds like
it's
a
like
vacation.
Bourbon Street
Love it.
after a party, you know.
Right.
It's
Right.
awful. So it was one of those things that you would see things out of the corner of your eye, or you would hear things. I heard Anne call my name more than once, and she was over that way, and I heard it from that way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was my name. And Betsy's not a name people are going to mess up.
No.
You're going to say Betsy, you say it because you mean to. It's
Right.
not. It's not a common name. Maybe it was when the building was built, but it's not that common anymore. Just little weird things like that happened throughout those 3 days. It was creepy. I'm going to just say it. It was creepy.
Yeah.
So I've had multiple experiences like that in a lot of these old buildings that you go to inspect. It's just, you see things out of the corner of your eye. Could have been a rat, but it was kind of high up for a rat. And it was awfully big to be a rat. And it said your name. It's not good. It's a
What do you
rat.
think it is about buildings that hold on to those memories and energy? Do you think it's the brick? Are we talking about the elements that you think that keeps it running water?
I think it's a little of everything. I think places have memories.
Yeah.
And they don't forget it. And I don't know where it is in the buildings per se that it holds it, but it's definitely there. Being a historian, being a family genealogist, those kinds of stories are always right there on my radar. I spend a lot of time in cemeteries, as you can imagine, as a paranormal investigator and a genealogist.
Do you think cemeteries are haunted? I have always had a hard time believing that they'd want to stay in a place they've never been.
Honestly,
versus, being home.
Yeah. I find cemeteries to be very peaceful places.
Absolutely.
It's a place of rest.
It is.
Now, have I seen people in cemeteries who weren't there? Yes. Yes, I have. And they were definitely not happy about being there. They were lost and they wanted to leave and didn't know how. I have been to Gettysburg and seen soldiers on the battlefield that were not reenactors. There was a
I've
young
heard
man.
stories.
Yeah,
Yes,
there was
it's
a
on my
young
bucket
man one
list.
day that was clearly, it was very hot. And my mom and I had gone, I was like 18, and so my mom was with me. And she saw him first, and my mom's in the medical profession, and she's like, that kid looks like he's having heat stroke. Let's go check on him. And I turned around and said, check on who? And she turned and looked at me and then looked back, and he was not there.
Mm-hmm.
She said, I swear to God, I saw him. He was right there. And she told me exactly what he looked like.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I love going to cemeteries. I find them very relaxing, very peaceful. My husband wants to be cremated, but I want to be buried, and I want to be buried in a very old cemetery because I want to hear the stories of the spirits next to me. And as a storyteller, a genealogist, a historian, I want to be able to just have those conversations with the people that are buried there, and I truly believe that that's possible. I could be completely wrong. I won't know.
I love that. I love that.
I love that too, actually. That's one of the, I don't want to say coolest thing, but like I just love that so much.
Yeah.
And we hope that you don't get there soon.
Not anytime
Let's see.
soon.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
in any rush. Yeah, I want to be an old woman, die in my bed.
Maybe telling stories still as a
Exactly.
spirit.
I've got a lot of writing left to do. I've got the series to finish. I've got another one we just started. Yeah, I don't have anywhere to go anytime soon.
I thought that you're going to be actually coming through on EVPs. People are gonna be
Exactly.
like,
That's
"I
my
just
other
wanna talk
mission
to
is
you."
I'm gonna give the future paranormal investigators something to talk about.
I, so I love that Gabriel and I are on the same page so much sometimes that he asks a question that's like sitting in my head, which I love.
Because I read her thoughts, Betsy.
I think that he does
Sure.
sometimes. I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, thank you. That was it. That was the one. Just talking about like how places hold certain kinds of trauma, and you being a person that's gone to places that seem to have held a lot of trauma. And so, when you went, obviously Katrina and all of the other places that you were talking about earlier, the towers and all that, like, was it very apparent when you went there? Could you feel all of the energy there when you were there?
The energy was an overwhelming sense of oppression, a feeling of sadness, and just extreme loss. Of course, I lived in Oklahoma City until a year ago, and so I was never more than 20-minute drive to the bombing site.
Yeah.
Did I go? I couldn't. And children died, adults died, people died at work. Being a safety professional, that's one of those things that tests your faith as a safety professional.
Absolutely.
My job is to help protect people at work. How could we not do that? And so what gave me hope and what gave me strength was what they did with the memorial in Oklahoma City. It's a beautiful tribute to the people who lost their lives and the people who survived and the people who were forever changed, which is essentially the mission statement of the memorial. And I have been back a couple of times. I have not been through the museum, even though I know my hard hat at one time was in the museum.
Well, that's fantastic.
I haven't been able to go through it. And I keep thinking, okay, this is the year when I go back for my annual writers conference that I go to, is held in downtown Oklahoma City. I think, okay, this is the year I'm going to go. And last year I took friends down to the site, but the museum was closed. And I was able to get to the perimeter of the site, right about where the bomb truck was parked. And of course I saw it, within days of that event happening. But to see it now, it's much more peaceful, but it's still very hard and still very difficult. And that kind of thing that kind of thing goes with you. You carry that with you when you leave a site like that.
Absolutely.
For the World Trade Center, the work we did there was incredibly hard. It wasn't well appreciated. There are still people who are suffering from the effects of the work that they did, although majority of those people who are suffering from some of the respiratory illnesses now were the people in the immediate, the very first responders, not the workers going in doing the recovery work. It was those 9/11, that first couple of weeks before we got them, respirator fit trained and got their respirators on them. And, but some of those guys just did not want to wear it. They, like, it's already happened to me. I've already got the worst dose I'm going to get. Why worry about it now? And sadly, those are the ones we're losing. So, we did what we could for the workers who came in, months afterwards. They had it up and running within days, but I didn't get in there until a couple of months afterwards. So I feel like some of the things that I had, the interventions and the worker protections that I helped put in were life-saving. And we had a near miss when I was there. A crane swung with a load, and when it swung back, the load pendulumed into the cabin of the truck, and the worker was unscathed. It missed him by inches, but it was a very scary, circumstance. So we ended up doing additional training. We did trenching interventions. We had workers getting into trenches outside of the site, kind of in the area around the bombing site. Those are things I can say we saved lives while we were there.
Wow.
Had people who wanted to climb over the safety rails to take pictures, not realizing that there's nothing underneath the platform they're standing on. It's been completely knocked away, and that it's not safe to go over those barriers. So we had one person, my partner caught him by his belt and pulled him back over the barrier, and the guy turns around, just cusses him out. And he said, look, you can say whatever you want to on this side of the barrier, but you're going to be breathing to say it. So go ahead, say what you got to say.
Well, there's not a shortness in stupid people. So.
Well, it's just they don't have the experiences. They don't understand the consequences of what can happen. And so that was one of the things I tried to always put the positive spin I want you to go home whole and healthy at the end of the day. I want you to be breathing. I don't want you to be another statistic. We tried to explain to them why we were there, what we were there to do, and it was our mission to make sure they got to go home to their families.
That's very
Yep.
cool.
Yeah.
So what is next for you, Betsey? What you mentioned you have a couple books coming up. How do
Yep.
people find you? All that fun stuff.
Yeah,
you're amazing.
Absolutely. Right now, the big thing is the Unfreaking Believable podcast. We're in our 3rd season.
Unfreaking believable
Unfreaking
podcast.
believable.
That is probably the second best name, the third best name, right behind Chumming with the Spirits, and of course Darkwoods Paranormal first, and then Unfreaking Believable. I love that.
We tell
No.
stories of the moments that make a difference in everyday lives, and sometimes it's paranormal, sometimes it's a moment of faith, sometimes it's a do or die decision, but it's always life changing. And so we try to make it very positive and very uplifting. So we have been mad at it, recording the beginning episodes for season 3. We release on the 11th and 27th of every month. So we do 2 episodes a month. We currently have enough guests lined up to have us through April, which is unfreaking believable if you ask me. Because we usually are like, okay, we need somebody for Thursday. Who you got?
Right.
It's like, well, I got another Bigfoot guy. And they're like, we've had all the Bigfoot guys. Let's get something different. We try to keep a variety. So we have to
Absolutely.
stagger, the different types of stories. And we try to get a pretty diverse, guest list going, and, men and women and all different ethnicities. And, we have a whole process we go through to vet people. So the podcast is going great guns. We're getting great response. We have a large listenership. We have a good time doing it, and it's just more girl time for us because it's 3 of us that run it, and we're all authors, and we all have different stories that we like to tell. And then the Manifest Destiny series, which is the 2nd series I've got, is co-written with my fellow podcaster, author J.B. Kane, and she and I wrote it. We're getting ready to release book 3 in March, and we write these books very quickly. They're actually a novella. It's a little bit shorter than a full novel. About these sisters with the secret society and these lost treasures that they have to collect. And so we have this on a rapid release cycle. So we're trying to do 3 a year, which most authors, if you get 1 book a year out, you're pretty good. I like to get 6 or 7 out a year if I can, because I'm a glutton for punishment, and I'm retired now, so I can stay home and write full time. So we just finished book 3. We're full on in edits for this book. And I actually wrote the prologue for book 4, which is going to be set in New Orleans. So I'm kind of excited about that because that's a place I know and love near to dear. So you can find me pretty much anywhere on social media at author Betsey K. I won't make you spell Kulakowski, but you got to get the extra E in Betsey. It's Betsey.
Yeah, you do.
People trip up on that. But I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. And I won't call it anything but that. I'm on Threads. I'm on Blue Sky. If there's a social media platform out there, with a few exceptions, I'm on it. I don't know about Lemonade or whatever that is, and some of those others. But I'm on TikTok. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm figuring it out. And then my website is author.betseykulakowski.com, and that's where you can sign up for my newsletter, read my blog, get the latest and greatest on my new books. There's links to all my books, which are available wherever books are sold: Amazon, Audible, Kobo, Kindle. And the Manifest Destiny series, we are now in the process of developing an audiobook for the first book in the series called The Veil of Secrets. And we have contracted with a Hollywood actress from London is narrating our audiobook. And I just heard the 2nd chapter today, and oh my gosh, it's so good. So yeah, there's lots going on in Betsey's world over here.
And you said your new book comes out on Tuesday?
Yeah, the Sultan Stone comes out on Tuesday, and that's available for pre-order in Kindle. So if anybody's interested in that, just go over there to the big Amazon, and you can load up on it. The other thing is, if you want to start the series, you're not sure that you're in on it yet, and you don't want to spend a lot of money. The first book is only 99 cents for the ebook. Or if you're brave and you want to really dive in, the first 6 books are in an ebook box set for only $10, $9.99. So, whatever your comfort level is with that series.
I say go for the whole series.
I say go for the whole thing.
While you're doing it.
Exactly.
You got to see the whole thing, because
then you're going to more than a cup of coffee, do it.
Then you don't have
You're
to
going to
wait.
read the one and you're going to want to
Yeah.
read the other one. So it's
Yes.
just
Yeah.
fair.
And then when you're done, you're going to want to go write a review so all your friends know what a good book it is.
Of course you will.
Because we live and die by reviews.
Yeah,
always
you
saying-
do.
My first book
Love
has
that.
187 reviews on it. My last book has 14. So don't stop just because you got the first one. Your job's
Nope.
not done. Just tip your author here. Give us a review. We always appreciate it. We say the same thing for the podcast. So.
Love that.
And I don't read. I don't read a lot
Mhm.
besides the things that I have to read in
Yeah.
everyday life. However, and I've said this, we have such amazing authors on here that I really might need to start.
Hey, audiobooks.
It's just, audiobooks.
Yes.
That's even better, Betsy.
Narrated by
listen,
Gabriel
audiobooks.
Wong Graves.
You have a voice made for radio or audio.
Well, a face made for radio for sure.
Well,
you know?
yeah. But yeah.
That's not nice.
Yeah.
I'm a huge audiobook fan, and that was really important to me that I got an audiobook. So,
Fantastic.
definitely something that's important.
Well, as we begin to close tonight's episode, I want to take a moment to offer a sincere thank you to Betsey for joining us. Your time, your presence, and your willingness to share your experiences add real depth to this conversation. And we're truly grateful you chose to spend part of your evening with us here at Darkwoods Paranormal. Thank you for your openness, your insight, and the work you continue to do as an author. It has been an honor having you with us tonight. And to everyone listening, thank you for being part of this community. Tonight's discussion resonated with you. We invite you to continue the conversation. Follow us, the show on all our socials. Raven can definitely, before we close, make sure you tell them where they can find us. From all of us here at Darkwoods Paranormal, stay aware, stay curious, and most of all, my friends, do stay safe out there. Raven, what do we have going on, and where can they find us?
Well, they can find us on all the socials as well. So Facebook, TikTok. We are also on X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it nowadays.
That's excellent.
Whatever it is, it's out there. We're out there.
Man builds the robots and cars and rockets. I mean, come on, we gotta give them some credit.
We're out there too. We're out there in all the things. If you're watching us on YouTube.
Yeah.
But if you hear audio, you can always just listen to us instead of looking at us. That's fine too. Or you can always visit our website at darkwoodsparanormal.com for some merch. We don't have a ton of merch on there, but we do have some merch. So that's it for where we are. But I just want to take a second to thank Betsey as well. Betsey, I want to say you've been unfreaking believable.
Unfreaking believable.
Yeah, and you
so
said something,
much.
Gabe, that caught my attention. Is my motto for my book is stay curious always.
Stay curious always. Absolutely. Curious mind is a humble mind because you're always learning new things.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Well, you've been amazing. Hang back for just a few seconds after we are done here, but everybody can check out a new episode of Darkwoods Paranormal on Sunday. So we'll
And
have
Betsey's books, don't forget that. They sound interesting.
So thank you so much. Have a great night.